Thank you for joining me for another video. Last time, wasn't last week, but last time in our midweek video we talked about the laws of kashrut, which is the kosher laws, what sort of animals we are and are not allowed to eat, what sort of mixtures of foods that would normally be permitted that are not permitted as a mixture. I gave the two examples of mixing meat and dairy, and also mixing meat with fish. Technically, and I think I brought this up, technically you could have fish with dairy, or you could have fish and meat in the same meal, as long as you're not eating them off of the same plate. There are a lot of other minor laws associated with that, but really it's more of we call them laws, but sometimes they're really just kind of step one, do this, step two, do this. So today it's going to be kind of like that. We've got a bunch of different laws that work together to tell us about Shehitah, which is a kosher slaughter. A bunch of different laws that tell us exactly how to do it, but really the majority of the time they're just, step one, bring in animal. Step two, look at animal. Step three, that sort of thing. And I'm not exaggerating about that. Bringing in the animal is literally one of the steps. You're required to inspect it before you slaughter it, and we'll get into it. I'm going to give you the how do we call it, a walkthrough. I'm not going to show you anything. I'm not. Well, I am going to show you something, but nothing gory. I'm not even going to show you an animal. I'm just going to show you my knife. My slaughtering knife. We're going to talk about the procedure itself. We're going to talk about the knife that's used for it, and we'll see if I kind of get lost in any rabbit trails along the way. So, first things first, the shechitah is performed by a shohet, which is a I don't know if we have a word for it in English, but maybe a butcher is the closest word to a slaughterer. Man, it just sounds wrong to say slaughterer. Someone who slaughters, that person is called a shohet. So the shohet, he has to be trained. There is an education period that you need to go through. It's not like going out and hunting, where you can just pick up a rifle and or a bow, whatever you choose, and just go shoot Bambi or Thumper or whatever it is you shoot for. Birds, pheasant, quail, that sort of thing. We're not allowed to do that in Judaism, and this is actually what prompted this video. Was somebody asked me specifically, are we allowed to hunt? So here's a quick answer to that question before we get into the main, let's call it, meat of the video. The answer is we're not allowed to hunt in the same way that most non-Jews hunt today. Okay, and what I mean by that is we don't go out with a rifle, a shotgun, a bow and arrow, a spear, or whatever else you could possibly hunt with. We don't go out with that and kill game out in the field, because there is a specific way the animal has to be slaughtered. Now, what we are allowed to do is, technically, we can trap an animal, a wild animal, and slaughter it. Once we go back to check the traps, you see Bambi's in it. Okay, all right, well, time to bust out the knife, and we do it properly. We're not allowed to shoot the animal dead. We're not allowed to set a trap that would really cause any harm to the animal. You can trap it, but you're not allowed to hurt it in the trapping process. So that really kind of narrows it down. Now today, in the modern world, a lot of game animals are actually farmed, so that there's a steady supply of it. Laws of supply and demand. Capitalism is a wonderful thing, when it comes to ensuring that you've got every single thing, that you want year-round. And if you don't have it year-round, well, that's okay. You can figure out how to get it year-round. Strawberries, doesn't matter what time of year it is, I can buy them anytime in the store. Why? Well, because the strawberry farmers, farm all over the world. So wherever there are strawberries growing, they will always be in season somewhere. And that ultimately finds its way back to the grocery store. Same thing with farming of game animals. Typical game animals that are farmed that we can slaughter and eat are things like bison, which, if you're not familiar, you could go to the U.S. National Park Service Twitter account. Well, it's X now, but it was Twitter, or their Facebook, and just look at all the videos of bison, attacking people who get too close. They're not actually attacking. They just, in their mind, they're defending themselves. In the tourist mind, they just wanted a selfie with a big bison. Beautiful animals, and they're delicious, and they're very gentle too. They're very wonderful animals to farm. I've actually seen a few that are farmed. And it's really, honestly, quite breathtaking to be able to stand right next to one. I've only seen them on the plains from a distance. Small herds of them. Until I saw in a farm. And that was cool. That was very cool. I used to have a picture of a bison actually being treated for injuries, because it was just, there's something special about seeing an animal that easily weighs 3, 4, 5 of me, and is at least 2 or 3 of me in terms of size, that could kill me if it wanted to, that, another human being is taking care of them. There's just something special about seeing that. It's like on Jurassic Park, just when you've got these animals, these dinosaurs that could kill people in a heartbeat, and you got doctors that are working on them to help them, help patch them up and stuff. It's something special to see. It's very cool to see, very good to see, because it shows you that, yeah, we are capable humans. We're capable of some very great violence, but at the same time, we're also capable of rendering aid to those who, could destroy us very quickly, make very quick work of us. So, not allowed to hunt. We are allowed to farm animals. Here are a couple of animals that, I mentioned bison. A couple of animals, though, that we have farmed and we have slaughtered in the farm. So bison, deer, I guess technically turkeys count as well, because they are technically game animals. Turkeys run wild here in Florida. Matter of fact, I almost ran over some the other day in my work truck. Really glad my boss wasn't there for that, because they're big. But there are a number of other animals that you could do it with. Technically, like I mentioned last time, you could do it with a yak, a giraffe, but good luck slaughtering a giraffe. Peacock, I don't recommend eating a peacock. It feels wrong, there are some things that, some animals you see and you're like, oh yeah, for sure that guy's food. But other animals like a peacock, you see and you're just like, dude, who would kill that? Okay, maybe I'm the only one that's a little weird like that, okay? Double standards, I don't know. But let's talk about slaughter, okay? So there is a right and a wrong way to slaughter in Torah I guess Torah law would be a good way to say it. And it comes from, there's a passage in the Torah where God specifically says, and by the way, this is Deuteronomy 12, verse 21, at least in Jewish translations. It may not be in a Christian translation, but it's going to be around verse 21. God is specifically giving us rules for, listen, man, if you want to eat meat that hasn't been consecrated at the tabernacle, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. You're allowed to do that because maybe it's too far of a trip. Once you've settled in the land, maybe it's too far of a trip. You can't make your way to the tabernacle or in later times to the temple. So you're allowed to slaughter them where you are. Meat doesn't have to be consecrated as long as you remember to give the foreleg, the cheeks, and the maw. That would be the final stomach to the Kohen, to the Israelite priest, as a gift. As long as you remember to do that and you properly slaughter this animal, you're fine, you can do it. And the Torah specifically says that you have to slaughter them in the way that I commanded you, not that I showed you, that I commanded you on the mountain, referring to Mount Sinai. Now, if you are a really, really, really astute or very observant biblical scholar, if you happen to have the entire Torah memorized in every language you speak, if you happen to have access to the internet, you will learn very quickly that there's never a place in the written Torah where God says how to slaughter the animal. He just says, when you go to slaughter it, you have to slaughter it in the way that I commanded you. But that command is never mentioned in Scripture. So this is one of those times where, it's very obvious that there is an oral Torah that was given alongside the written Torah, because otherwise, A, how is that verse going to make any sense? And B, so what are we eating? Grilled cheese sandwiches the rest of the day? I mean, come on. You can't just have dairy and bread and stuff like that. And God said, oh, yeah, you can slaughter and knock yourself out. So what? We're going to eat lasagna, with no meat. No meat. For those of you who eat lasagnas with meat. I really would have loved to have seen a lasagna cooked in like an earthenware oven in the desert, in the Sinai wilderness. I just think that would have been cool to see, What are we having for dinner tonight? Oh, it's lasagna, and it's in the oven right now. Should be ready in like 6 hours. Oh, man, good times. But, presumably good times. But, so again, this is one of the proof texts for the existence of an oral Torah. Because you can't say, do it like I told you to, if there's no written way to, or no written command for how to do it, right? So, that's what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to give you the very quick answer, and we're going to get into it. So the quick answer for how you properly slaughter an animal is, you get a special knife, and you slit the animal's throat. Okay? You drain it of the blood, then you remove all the organs, the forbidden fats and everything, and you salt it, and then, after you've rinsed the meat, after you've salted it, and then rinsed it again, you can eat. Okay, but we're going to get a little bit more in detail. So this, I'm just going to show you right now, is a kosher slaughtering knife. This is made for small mammals. I guess technically you could do it, use it on chickens as well. But it's specifically designed for sheep, goats, that size animal. You're going to notice the blade on this particular one is not really that big. The reason for that is it only has to be like twice the size of the animal's neck, because you gotta have room to. It's in a sawing motion, okay? I really don't want to say you have to saw the animal's neck, but that's what I'm gonna say, because I mean, like, really, how else am I gonna say it? So it's a sawing motion. But this, so this particular knife, you're gonna look at it, you're gonna see that on this end there are no points. Well, okay, so there are 2 points, but they're here and here. They're at the corners. It's a square. Okay, it's a rectangle. Okay, so and you're also going to notice that it's a very reflective surface. There, you can see my computer down there. It's a very reflective surface, and there's a reason for that. Okay, we'll get into that in just a second. The knife itself is called. It has like 3 names for it. So I'll call it a sakin. Okay, that's what I call it most of the time. It's also called a halaf. Typically, you'll see that more in Ashkenazi usage. The Sephardim, for some reason, we have the word sakin. I'm not really sure what the difference between the two is, like where they came from, because they're both Hebrew words. I just wonder if maybe one of them came from another language and the other one came from a different other language, or if they just, developed independently within the Hebrew language. I'm not sure. Third term for the knife, and this is actually a biblical one, is called a ma'acheleth. Okay, and that is my favorite one. Even though I don't use it, because ma'acheleth literally means destroyer, right? So it just, or sorry, not destroyer, devourer. Something that devours something else, right? So it's like it's eating it. The idea behind it being that it is consuming the life of the animal, right? Also happens to be the term for a knife in general. Or one of the terms for a knife just in general. And you can actually see that in the Torah. When we get to Abraham, we'll talk about that. Okay. Now, the knife itself, it's got to be very sharp. It has to be, the surface of it has to be very reflective, so that you can see if there are, any nicks or scratches or anything on the blade that would disqualify it for use. It has to be perfectly blemish free. It has to be sharp. Quickest way to check for sharpness is, first of all, just to look down the cutting edge of the blade. If you see any shiny surfaces at all, well, that's probably a spot where there's some damage and it needs to be what's the word, sharpened out, I guess. After the visual inspection, then you move on to take your thumb, and you're going to take your thumbnail and you're going to go 3 times. I just cut through my thumbnail, that's great. You're going to go 3 times along the length of the blade on both sides of it. Then, assuming that passes, assuming you're not picking up any, you're not feeling anything, any sort of serration or nicks or dents or anything like that, the blade's not, curved in a funky way or something. You are, next thing you're going to do is, I'm not going to do it because there will be, somebody out there that's like, he's cutting himself. Second thing that you do is, I'm going to use the back side of the blade, the not sharp side, is you take it and you just, on the webbing of the fingers, you're just going to, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be the full, let's kill everything on my hand, sort of movement, as long as you make sure, I'll leave it out for a minute, as long as you make sure that there's no tearing that occurs, that it cuts through your flesh, okay? And the reason for that is because if it cuts through your flesh, it's going to cut through the flesh of whatever it is that you're slaughtering, okay? Now, before I go further, I just remembered, I should have said at the beginning, and I will absolutely try to remember to say it again at the end, that this video is not intended to teach anybody how to perform a proper kosher slaughter. For that, you need to learn from somebody. Okay? You need to train with somebody, and you need to have them gauge, how well you could do it, that sort of thing, right? Basically, they're there to help walk you through the process. You need to have them with you, for the first few times, just until they are convinced that you're able to do it properly. Once your instructor is convinced that you can do it properly, okay, they'll let you free and they'll let you do whatever, you are authorized to. We make, flash and gang signs and stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know. But it's been a day, let me tell you. So, I mentioned it before, the blade tip is non-existent. There is no point at the end, and the reason for that is because we are afraid that if there is a point, somebody is accidentally going to drive that point into the flesh. Even, if it's on purpose, that's a big problem. If it's on accident, well, that's a different problem, but it's a lesser problem. So you want to make sure that it's all above board. You don't want to, make a mark on the animal that you don't have to, because the objective is not just to kill the animal. The objective is to kill the animal as painlessly as possible and as humanely as possible, okay? Now, there are those in Europe who don't like Shehitah. They don't like it because we don't stun the animal first, and they think that that's cruel and causes unnecessary suffering to not stun the animal first. But I think using a bolt gun to stun the animal, to knock it out before you bludgeon it to death, I think that that's far worse, okay? So we're not going to talk about the Europeans and their sort of embedded anti-Semitism. We're not going to talk about, my opinion that they're idiots for thinking that our way is worse. But it has caused issues in Europe. I know that the EU at one point was actually talking about banning it. But luckily there are Muslims in Europe who also slit the throat of the animals that they kill, and they make up a much bigger portion than the Jews. And so they basically said, no, we're not doing it. We're going to keep doing it anyway. And the EU, from what I understand, sort of backed off and was like, you know what? For religion, it's okay. Religious, it's okay. If the Jews had said, wait, you can't do that, the EU would have said, well, that's too bad. I guess you're vegetarians now. Ha ha! But once you get the Muslims involved, I'm telling you, man, all it takes is a couple of, conflicts between the Christian and the Muslim worlds, and suddenly the Europeans are like, you know what, these Muslims, they could actually do some damage, so let's appease them a little bit more, and I am thankful for that in this case. Now, walk you through the process. So, you get your knife, you get it ready, you bring in the animal, right? It could be, cow, sheep, goat, whatever the case may be, bison, peacock, yak, giraffe. If you know the proper place to do it, you bring it in, you inspect the animal, you inspect the animal from the outside first. Okay, then you check the blade the way that I just showed you. You know, you run your fingernail across it 3 times on either side. You know, you look at the blade to make sure that you're not seeing any imperfections. You know, you check it on the webbing of your fingers to make sure that yes, it does cut. And the knife needs to be incredibly sharp. And by the way, it's literally sharp enough that when you cut yourself with it, and it's just a little paper cut size, you don't feel it. Okay, I've actually gashed my finger open very well, clear down to almost down to the bone. And I'm not going to show you any pictures because I don't have them, and because I promised no gore. You know, almost down to the bone with it, and and I didn't even feel it. So I don't know what the Europeans are talking about with their oh, it's inhumane. No, it's just, you know, it's not causing pain. It's just, you know, if you do it right, it's not causing pain. If you do it wrong, well, then we need to talk, because it's probably not kosher. I'm telling you, man, the Europeans, they just don't understand how strict our laws are. If they did, they'd be like, well, I mean, if they say it causes no pain, and if it's done properly, it causes no pain, but if it's not done properly, it can cause pain, you know, I think we'll notice. You know, Europeans need to learn to trust me. Not me, but me, the Jewish people. What was I even going with that? Oh yeah, so you pull out the knife. You're inspecting this bad boy. You're looking it over. You're checking it. You know, making sure that it's not pulling or tearing at your skin as you you know, as you run the blade over the webbing of your fingers. You bring the animal close by. You brace it. Okay, it can be either, now you're not gonna like hold it mechanically or anything. No, probably the best way to do it would be to lay the animal down on its side or perhaps on its back, if you can. It's also fine to have the animal standing. So if you're the type of guy who can handle it standing, okay, but these animals are big, man, especially cows and bison and giraffes. But I only bring up giraffes because there's a specific place where you have to cut, okay, and that's what we're going to get into next. So you go up to the animal, you're going to check, you're looking for the largest ring, which on me is right here, the largest ring in the throat of the esophagus. You're going to go just below it, okay? And then you make the beracha, the blessing, which blesses God for giving us the commandment of Shehitah, as opposed to, I don't know, bludgeoning it to death. And then, because there is nothing more stressful to anyone than, you know, watching someone take a club to the animal's head and just, I'm not even gonna, somebody's going to report this video. Not gonna get into it. But the, so that's where you make the cut, is just below the larger ring of the esophagus. Okay, you're going to take the knife and, you know, after you make the beracha, you start, you know, with the sawing motion. You do not apply pressure. If you apply pressure, or if the knife goes in to where you can no longer see the back of it, or if, you know, you unintentionally poke it somehow and that breaks skin, or you tear it, or you, you know, you cause some other sort of disqualifying motion, the animal's not kosher. You have to sell the meat, which, given their cost, you know, today is not that bad of a thing. But back in the day, yeah, it was an issue. You know, it would have been a very big issue. So you had to get it right. Otherwise, you just wasted an animal, and yeah, you're going to be compensated monetarily for it. But at the same time, I mean, how many more do you have in your herd? You had 100 sheep, now you've got 99, and that's, you know, now you're going to have to take out I don't know, a breeding animal that, you know, to make up for this loss. I mean, come on, do it right. You do it right the first time, you're not going to have to, you know, go back for round two. And by the way, the whole time the animal has to be calm. Okay, so it's not uncommon to see a shehitah go in and just sort of pet the animal. You know, I'll talk to it, get it calmed down a little bit. You know, hey buddy, listen man, I'm sorry about this, but I'm about to kill you, but it's okay. We're gonna use your meat for food. You know, your skin is gonna be a nice scar scroll or zuzah or, you know, something else that, you know, you need the skin for. I'm sure the animal doesn't really, you know, hear that and think to itself, oh, well, as long as I'm serving a good purpose. You know, I don't think that they do that. That's mostly for me, you know, because it helps to remind me why I'm doing it, okay? But yeah, then you start the sawing motion. You go through, okay, so you go through the trachea, through the esophagus, okay? You're also going to cut through the jugular veins and the arteries that I've completely forgot the name of right now, that the carotid artery that supplies blood to the brain. Your cut is going to cut all the way through those, but not so far as to go down to the bone. This also, by the way, severs the vagus nerve, which helps to send the pain signal. So if you do it right, you do it quickly, this animal's not going to feel any pain. In fact, independent observers, and by independent observers I mean non-Jews who specifically work in, you know, for humane slaughtering method type companies. I'm sure they have a name, but I don't know what they're called. But so independent observers have actually seen the process, and you know, they'll tell you that the animal, if the cut is done properly, the animal doesn't even feel it. It doesn't even respond to it at all. After you've done that, that severs the vagus nerve, which kills a lot of the information coming from the body to the brain. It also, the sudden drop in blood pressure is going to cause this animal to lose consciousness at the most after, let's say, a minute, maybe a minute and a half. You know, but typically it happens within the first like 30 seconds or so. Animals, you know, it's calm, it's minding its own business, and it just drops. Or, you know, if you've got something underneath it to support it, it'll, you know, sort of fall under that support. And it's actually kind of sad when it happens. It really is. It's, you know, you feel it. You know, and I think that there's a reason that God told us to do it this way. And I think that the reason is because He wanted us to feel it. He wanted us to understand that life is precious. All life is precious. And you should only take a life if you're doing it for the preservation of life, which is ironic. But in the case of food, okay. In case of self-defense, okay. You know, you should only take a life when it's necessary. You know, it shouldn't be like an everyday sort of thing. Okay. And I really feel like that's what God wanted to impress upon us with this, you know, with the laws slaughter. You know, he didn't want us to shoot an animal from a distance because, you know, I can't feel anything if I don't build some sort of, you know, emotional bond with this animal before the slaughter. You know, if I'm just bang, you know, and it's done, okay, all right, let's do it again. Let's go get another one. You know, I like shooting guns. Okay, so knowing me, I'd be like, let's go shoot something else. You know, so it's just me. It's the veteran in me, the military veteran. Ooh, somebody's engine's loud. So after the slaughter is completed, trim the knife again in the exact same way, and the reason for that is to make sure that you didn't mess up the blade any. You know, that would render it unfit for use. Now, if after the slaughter you do find that you know, the knife is unfit for use, well, then you know, you have to determine, is this something that happened after the animal is slaughtered, or is this something that perhaps I missed initially? You know, and that determines whether the animal is kosher or not. So, after the animal's been slaughtered, after it's, you know, it's been drained of blood, you know, you skin it. Those of you who might be a little bit queasy hearing things like this, maybe you should stop listening. You skin it, you remove the organs. Okay, the organs have to be inspected, and you're inspecting the organs for any sort of a blemish that, you know, like a disease type blemish that could potentially have killed this animal within a year's time. You're also looking for any sort of injuries other than, you know, the obvious that would have perhaps led to its death in a year's time. If you don't find any of that, great. If you do find some of that, the animal's not kosher, you have to sell the meat. You know, then you are allowed, after that post-mortem inspection, then you're allowed to start, you remove the priest's gifts. So the gifts that go to the Kohen, remember the foreleg, the cheeks, and the maw, which is the final stomach chamber. They all go to the Kohen. Then the rest of it, I mean, it's whatever you want to do with it. We're not allowed to eat certain types of fat, so those have to be removed, and usually they're burned or buried, or perhaps given to, you know, animals. If you're slaughtering an animal, by the way, that is typically a game animal, you have to cover the blood with dirt. If you are the type of person who enjoys eating organs, the meat of organs, certain organs are allowed, certain organs are not allowed. The heart is problematic because blood, you know, we're not allowed to eat blood. The liver, which filters blood, is also problematic. Liver is not a particularly tasty organ anyway, so it's kind of like a, never mind, I'm not even going to describe it. It is possible to have kosher liver, but there's a special process for doing that. It is not possible to have a kosher heart. Okay, that sounds really strange. It's not possible to eat a heart that is kosher, because the assumption is the blood is for sure going to stay in it, at least to some extent. So edible organs can be processed. The meat needs to be salted. First it's rinsed, then it's salted for like a half hour, then it's rinsed again, then it's butchered. We're not allowed to eat, I mentioned certain fats, we're not allowed to eat the sciatic nerve, okay, because of the incident where our ancestor Jacob wrestled and his sciatic nerve was damaged in the process. So as a result, we don't eat it. It's not kosher. and the meat around it not kosher, so it has to be removed. The veins, the sinews, the anything else that's in the meat, in the muscle, you're not allowed to eat that. It's okay because the sinews can be used for Torah scrolls. They can be used for the threads that bind a tefillin to that hold the boxes closed on tefillin. And I'm gonna do a video about tefillin probably in the next couple of weeks. And it you can use the hide, the skin, for a number of things. You should use it for a sacred purpose, so like tefillin, Torah scrolls, a mezuzah, the parchment from a tefillin, the scroll of Esther, or something like that. If you have all of that, yeah, it's okay to have leather. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. Double check my notes. Luckily, I'm far enough away that I can read it without my glasses, because my glasses are in the other room. Yeah, man, that is everything. You give the Kohen his gifts. You make sure that you properly process the meat. You get rid of the forbidden fats, the forbidden organs, and things like that. And that is your basic kosher slaughter. Obviously, there are going to be more details that I intentionally left out. And again, if you are relying on this video to teach you how to do it, no. You need to study the texts, the appropriate halachic texts, and you need to learn with a teacher. Okay, if you're Jewish. If you're not Jewish, okay, so there's a little bit more leniency, but I would still recommend somebody at least showing you how to do it. So anyway, that being said, I am done. So until next time, shalom.